Muerto seis. Muerto seis took pride in home and hearth, employing peace to quell resistance and rebellion from simple inhabitants who dwell in his burgeoning vice kingdom. City lovers with extra gold to toss his way for vice and rum were far away, living in cold climate cities that locked the gates against the north's gray, leafless cold, whose frosty shadow devastates cattle and crop, freezing their wealth. Hearth flame and candlelight placates the gods of shadow and stealth, dwelling in the eternal night. They freeze the flow of vice and wealth. Trade routes blocked with an icy spite against the gods of sun and heat, ever defiant, not contrite. The northern gods will know defeat at the hands of the king of vice. Martel and Dunglak walk down the street from a city, knowing the ice and snow of those hateful gods. They will accept his offer for vice, and if they don't, the price they'll pay is nothing more than keeping peace, their headless bodies on display, their heads on pikes slathered in grease, flames dancing to death chant and drum, summoning demonic increase. Rent-free the king, rent-free the dumb, lost Mag City, an easy take. Death 6 wants it under his thumb. He needs control over the lake to expand his trade. The power of the gods he will not forsake. They are alive, they don't cower to the elements of modern love, nor to her, Lady Flower, whose bright heavenly colors burn into the soul of all who gaze upon Wan's cloak and do not spurn the invitation to the maze. The invitation to the maze, wending down narrow cobbled lanes, lit by lamps, enshrouded in haze, leading through man's city like veins connected to a hungry heart, the very heart where all love reigns, toward which newborn souls depart, where at last breath will come to rest, where reality's torn apart, and all of our sins are addressed, judgment final, punishment just, sins committed are sins confessed, hidden treasures corrode to rust, the grains of time turn into glass, and every man returns to dust. Shining in the Gate City. The rising sun gave warmth to mass in Gate City. The chalice, cast in golden light rays as they pass over the round planet, trespassed into the sunken eyes of lost souls whose god-king had somehow passed into the next realm. His death cost his citizenry wealth and law. They knew Death 6 would soon accost them, swallow them up in his maw, appointing a Muertan priest, the ones vying for Satan's jaw, the ones who live as though deceased, prowling round the circles of hell, ensnaring souls, the weak, the least. With their influence they compel mothers to offer their unborn in bloody sacrifice, to quell the gods of vice, to sate their scorn. Their potions flush the mother's womb, helpless souls for whom angels mourn. The priests of death were given room in Renfrey's court and were immune from the law, free to practice doom. With Renfrey gone, they laid low. Soon Lord Muerto Seis would appoint a dark priest as king, one in tune with his empire, working in joint with other kings across the land to expand dark trades and anoint the flocks with the Death 6 firebrand. Chaos and barbarism reigned during the interregnum. Bland food and muddy water, blood-stained streets, unburied dead, uncontrolled fires, primal urges unrestrained. Gate City was now pigeonholed into accepting foreign rule. Muerto Seis's stranglehold was iron tight, both cold and cruel. But this, the chalice of the free, shone bright against the common fool. Held high, and the dark priests could see a god was here, a god unknown, held with respect, reverently, as if fear and love were both sown into its essence, as revealed to man. a force as yet unknown, a power hitherto concealed, a threat to be suppressed, never to be dug up, never unsealed. The priests of Death 6 endeavor to silence the men of the black and brown robes, but they are clever and strong, and they possess a knack for connecting with the faceless. They never fomented attack or insurrection. Their baseless claims and ideas of power appeal to the poor powerless class. Where once they used to cower, some are left with an unseen mark, glowing eyes that used to glower even when thrown into the dark pits. Something in them did not die. The Mag City king left his mark in Gate City. The dark priests vie for kingship no more. His right-hand man will stay behind and supply order. 3 days back trail, a band of soldiers awaits to descend upon Gate City as Martell planned. Brown Robe. Try as he could not mend the sores. He bore them as a saint, wanting only the marks to end. The pain was holy, without taint, but people did not understand the wounds, nor he much. He tried paint, ointment, salves. Nothing worked. Each hand and foot bore the stigmatic wound, his gift bestowed by no demand of his, while his soul was marooned on this fallen planet. The chant for Mass began. He let his wound show without shame. They're Christ's and can't be hid. Maybe they were for them and not for him. The Agnus Dei chant ended. Dona nobis pacem, they pled, mercy, mercy, and peace. But first war. Not on other men. No, the war that can win release from the dark and nebulous den of sin. Kairos metanoia. Escape the pestilential fen from demonic paranoia, from lust and attachment to sin. Turn, think upright, orthonoia. Suffer with Christ, not from your sin. Cling to truth, reach out for his robe. Let the wounds blazed on the Turin shroud, the ones he let Thomas probe. Precious gifts from another realm, from heaven to this tiny globe, suspended in space-time, the helm manned by Peter, Bishop of Rome. If you need proof, start with Anselm. But proofs are not what take you home. Let his precious wounds heal your soul, that you may not aimlessly roam. Mass ended. He removed his stole, setting out again down the trail to gather another lost soul, offer them a home and a rail to kneel at, to eat and drink bread and wine, the same held in the Grail. The same flesh that was torn then bled, the bread held in Jesus Christ's hand, the very same that's never dead, wafer thin, unleavened, and bland, gnawed by a soul cleaned and confessed, placed into your mouth by the hand of someone who has just been blessed. Ecce homo, holy, divine. Jam in the desert. Traveling for what she had guessed was the entire north to south line of the wilds, Jam felt the dry heat of the high desert and the shine of the star. There was no retreat from it. What was she doing out here? This was crazy. Both her feet were on fire. This land was about as foreign to her as moon colonies were to Earth. Far out there, somewhere in the dock of Boone, was the source of the light she saw. She gauged its flight and knew that soon she'd come to where it fell. With awe, she walked in the bright moonlit night with creations who obeyed the law that survival's the only fight that matters. The arsenal held by these small creatures are a sight for the keen eye unparalleled. She was easily distracted by these wonders, but still compelled to find the light that attracted her. She walked on, hoping to find something worth her search, protracted and delayed, as though scared to find the thing, scared it would not fulfill, left with these strange thoughts, as though designed to think them through. She thought until she was confused. One thing she knew, To live is good, but some things kill life. As she lived, she learned and grew. She avoided life killers like humans avoid the melt and flew towards beauty and goodness, like children to the shop of sweet treats. She came to see life as a hike, not so much the tough, salty meats. No, setting out with excitement, leaving behind the city streets for a curious settlement, and meeting the random stranger with tales of odd bewilderment. Coming close to death and danger, relaxing around a campfire, sharing stories of the stranger side of life, maids thrown in the pyre of their queen, cryptid creatures hid in the thick tangles of a mire where wise, knowing parents forbid their kiddies to stray day or night. The end was a dread. She did not want to stop her fancy flight into the wilds of this fated land. She loved home, but hoping there might be something out there to demand of her, all she had, she set out at the kind, suggestive command of shaman on her walkabout. She was to end at the fabled 51 by taking the route of the brown robes, the one labeled by the forest tribes as no-go. So she went. Shaman enabled her mind to see beyond the slow, confined village life to foreign power gods that could help her grow. There were god kings of the name Sin, far south disposed to the commerce of humans and vice. They were thin and weak, practicing the perverse behaviors of false transcendence. Unlike many, she'd read the verse of man and gods, and transcendence was a quality not of man. She witnessed the quick descendants of men who, with their gods, swiftly ran to public pleasure dens where hate and contempt are stoked by the fan of lust, as patrons imitate their gods and goddesses, those held of such esteem to emulate. These gods fell short and were dispelled from the height by wanton and crude ways. Refined reflections of felled human lives, reinforcing lewd and licentious actions that crowd out the good. Jan was a known prude. In ancient terms, she became proud to have, as it separated her from those who let desire cloud their judgment. Ingratiated gods had left her in want of more. By stars she was educated, and had an aching to explore beyond the cover of a book, and into the land of folklore. A landing. Outside of his spaceship, he took his first breath. It was good. The smell of fresh air alive with sound, that first sweet breath away. He fell to his knees, pinched himself, and woke the next day to a singing bell in a belfry lit by a spoke of morning star shine, swinging up and down. It stopped, and silence broke the song. He then nearly threw up. He was alone on a strange rock floating in space. All the buildup of coming here, now the sharp knock of practical reality sunk in. After the drawn-out shock, wonder and curiosity surged forth, commandeering his thought. The artificiality of Moon Ganymede, human-wrought, lay exposed in his mind's landscape. In those thoughtful moments he caught glimpse of a man wrapped in a drape. The first Earthman. His stomach sunk before any thought could take shape. The first Earthman he'd seen. A monk, judging by his garb. That'd explain the bell. He wondered if the monk spoke Latin. Did that tongue remain on this land? It died on his moon. Ganymede still had a refrain. We are Ganymede, this our moon. Earth is a dot, holds us not. Sit here with us on the dock of boon, those of us who quietly quit the way of life we now forget, with moon nectar and cyborg spit. Ancient customs forever lit by the eternal stars of night, burned long and slow. Those who commit to guarding the flame use the might of its source. Euclid never thought in 1001 nights of night the gravity tracks would have brought him here, the home of life. The brown robe approached Euclid, who was caught off guard by brown robe's solemn frown. The young friar's head, anointed with the founder's shaven crown, bowed slightly in greeting. He pointed from where he came over a hill where the bell rang. Disappointed to hear the young friar's tongue spill forth sounds he could not understand. He interpreted over hill as where they be going, from hand gesturing remarkably clear. With his things they walked across the sand to the top of the hill where, near, the church was seen. It took his breath away. He was a pioneer from a distant shore who risked death to escape the bastards who'd take his life, his joy, his thoughts, his breath. Such architecture was not fake, as it was on Moon Ganymede, where things were built without mistake, to be sure, but they did not feed to the human imagination. They did not feed to the human imagination ambrosia, the transcendent seed the gods plant when on vacation among mortals to let it grow and fruit. Not to feed starvation, no, to dare men to climb the stalk to the heavens where giants roam. Euclid had an authentic gawk at the cathedral's massive dome. It struck him with a slow dawning to be like a moonrise at home. Of equal worth to his fawning was the market and ramshackle city. Row upon row, awning after awning, spice and crackle bread, livestock, linens, coffee, tea, mesquite smoked meats, laughter, hackle hairdos, turquoise and beggary, telescopes, books, gadgets, gizmos, bargaining general merchantry of small batch handcrafted goods by those from near and far. But none so far as the Ganymede. "Let me close these doors, Euclid," he said. "You're far from home. I've been expecting you. You're late!" From bazaar to bizarre, thought Euclid. This gloved brown robe knew his name. But that could be a trick, thought Euclid. Though Euclid could not misconstrue what he did next. With a small stick he drew a picture in the dirt. The Ganymede plant with the thick red sap. He used it to convert Ganymede into impotence. How in space could this monk, begirt with religious accoutrements, have specific knowledge about the vengeance he wrought? His intents and purposes were, without doubt, left 90 million miles away down the Jupiter trading route. Yet there was something in the way brown robe, kneeling in the soft ground, looked up at him with some dismay. Unspoken thoughts, gestures, no sound. Only the contact of the eyes. A plain, honest knowing that bound them to admission, not lies. In turn, Euclid touched the right glove of brown robe. "Your God heard the cries of your prayers. I've read about love, your God, but I don't understand how your wounds come from the source of love. Ganny friend, I don't understand how they don't. You sought revenge for injustices wrought by a band of men on your moon. I adore these wounds because they remind me vengeance is God's alone. Take your injustices, and believe me, they're unjust. I've seen such things you can't believe, and I helped set free countless from slavery that grew up in the deepest pits of hell. These wounds free them. The men who slew the virgin born, the ones who'd sell his life for gold, they are out there in the market now, at the well, laughing. It's you and me. You stare at these wounds like they're mine. They're his precious wounds. He's letting me bear them with him. The glory is his. If not for him, justice would be done to us. Every sin of ours is another thorn piercing the Son of God. Justice is done to him, you see." "Okay, but how can one who's perfect be judged? We, men, judged him when we had no right to do so. Think, God came here, to earth. Our dim minds did not recognize him. So it is today. God's all around in our heart. We simply throw our gaze from the sky to the ground. We don't trust him, so we ignore his presence, or we rail and pound our hatred against him. What for? Because life's hard. Life is not fair. It's our own fault and nothing more. God sent his son, to pour out his blood, to hang on a cross of wood, held there by spikes. We pour utter contempt on him. Our loss, our eternal loss. We are blind to his perfection, so we toss him aside like an orange rind. It is an effect of the curse from the fall. Man is of the mind, I don't need a God, my gold purse is full. Modern said, God is dead. And today we are even worse off. Many are saying a dead God is a good God. Man is man, nothing more. The error that fed moderns is coming back. The span of centuries and more can't stop errors of the past. Rather than humble ourselves or pray or drop to our knees, we stand tall and judge the perfect one. Blind pride. That shop owner we met, he held a grudge for decades against the slavers who stole his children. Now he'll begrudge no one. Instead of driving through the flesh and bone, the hands and feet of Mary's boy, the spikes drive through his flesh as well. At death he'll meet Jesus, and I pray his children. These wounds are love, his hands and feet, his side and head, lashings again and again until every bone could be seen. My God, we're a den of vipers, so quick to turn stone into bread. God was here, and we knew him not. That's love. He alone could give us a chance. Do you see? This quiet future is our chance to find God. Take this rosary. When you find your thoughts askance, pray this. When free of temptation, pray this. Do not cast a half glance back to sin. Let no occasion stop you. Pray in season and out. Live knowing your destination is at the end of this life's route, the same one traveled by all who walk in faith or drown in their doubt. I hear you well, Brown Robe. Can you take me to your leader, your God? I just want to see if it's true that he is here, the living God of earth. Brown Robe just looked at him with piercing eyes. I met no God in space, but I saw beauty brim and overflow like fine champagne in crystal-cut glass. Almost grim. Birth, breath, death. It's hard to explain, but there is no chance to live out there. Ganymede don't wax, they just wane. I want to meet him who came here. I've read the myths of all the great religions, and when I compare them, there is a common, innate thread woven through them all. They seek truth and order. Gods subjugate man to their whims. Humans are weak and gregarious without aid. So they turn their gaze to the peak of a mountain where gods parade their powers, ever out of reach, challenging men to come invade their lofty heights, to find, to fight, to breach their secret truths, sacred, divine, to conquer dragons. The gods teach man how to live, to keep in line with fellow men, and how to raise one's chin up to where the stars shine, where suffering and man part ways. Life is chaos for all men born, from water, fire, and earthen clays, from women whose bodies are torn and milked dry as their babies feed, from the breast of love, not of scorn. Chaos for men who plant their seed in fields at home and far away, sowing fields with crop and weed. The cycle breaks, is ripped away, with the virgin birth, Buddha, Christ, born of spirit, not of clay. But Buddha was man. Jesus is Christ. I want to see him. Is he here?